For the next 30 seconds, take a deep breath, because what is about to happen within the Golden State Warriors could completely change everything you believe about the future of the franchise. If you are a Warriors fan, you know how difficult it has been to deal with uncertainty, rumors that are never confirmed, broken expectations, and that constant feeling that the team is trapped between the glorious past and a tomorrow that seems increasingly distant. And that's exactly why this video is for you. Today, let's get straight to the point. There is a shocking movement happening behind the scenes, something big enough to redefine the future, cast, and ambitions. And if you've always felt like no one really explains what's going on, here you'll finally understand what's behind this change and why it could be the turning point you've been waiting for months. Before I tell you what's really happening within the Warriors, do the following. If you love this team, click the subscribe button now, because here you won't get lost in shallow rumors or repeated news. Here is in-depth analysis explained in the way fans understand. Leave a like because this shows YouTube that this issue is important for the Warrior Nation and makes this video reach more people who have no idea what's going on. Activate the bell to receive everything firsthand, because when this bomb really goes off, you will be one of the first to understand what no one is telling you. Now stay with me until the end, because every second of this video will put together the puzzle of this shocking change that could mark the end of an era, or the beginning of something much bigger in the Golden State. There's big stuff happening within the Golden State Warriors, and it's not a matter of expression. If you love basketball, if you grew up watching this team change the way the game is played, take a deep breath for a moment, because what has happened in the last few hours has the weight of a historical chapter. It's not just another trade news. It's the kind of decision that changes the way we look at this franchise, the entire NBA, and especially what could still be the final stretch of the Stephen Curry era. Think with me. For years, we discussed whether the Warriors would rebuild, whether they would insist on the bridge between present and future, whether they would try to balance youth development with title contention. All of this, in one fell swoop, went out the window. Suddenly, what seemed solid, stable, predictable became something completely new. The feeling is that the ground in the basketball world has given a slight tremor, and we, as fans and observers, are exactly in the center of this shaking. When the season began, the mood around Golden State was one of controlled hope. Jimmy Butler's arrival at the last trade deadline seemed like the missing piece to keep the team competitive at the highest level. The 4-1 start to the campaign only reinforced this, Curry playing at an absurd level once again. That average of 27 points per game, leading the league in three-pointers made, kept alive the certainty that as long as he's on the court, this team is never truly out of the title conversation. Furthermore, Jonathan Kuminga had been showing exactly what everyone imagined when he was drafted. Privileged physique, aggression, star flashes. The new pieces, like Al Horford, gradually fit into Steve Kerr's system, giving that feeling of a rounded squad with depth, experience, and versatility. In terms of performance, there honestly wasn't much to complain about. But here comes a point that is almost a trademark of this franchise in the last decade. They don't accept good when there is a real chance of it being historical. Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob didn't build this dynasty by being conservative. They don't have the profile to look at a good enough team and say, "It's great. Let's leave it like that." When it comes to maximizing the final years of one of the greatest players of all time, acceptable risk goes up a notch. And that was exactly what started to become clear before that great duel against the Milwaukee Bucks, also 4-1, led by a two-time MVP champion with practically unbelievable numbers. While everyone saw just a giant regular season clash, a test between two title candidates, something much bigger was moving behind the scenes. The game, which already seemed great given its context, ended up turning into something else. A trigger, a thermometer, a turning point. Because inside the rooms where the real decisions are made, a conclusion began to gain traction. With small adjustments, the Warriors could remain relevant, but with extreme boldness, they could once again become the team that scares the entire league. On the other side, in Milwaukee, the scenario was much more complex than the table let on. The team was still competitive, but the loss of Damian Lillard due to a very serious injury injury completely changed the Bucks' title schedule. The replacement attempt with Miles Turner was correct, but not enough to maintain top candidate status. Behind official speeches and politically correct interviews, legitimate doubts arose. Is it really possible to fight for the title in this format? Can you convince an impatient superstar that the project is still viable? This superstar, you know who he is, and he never hid what he thinks. For him, victory is not a goal, it is a condition. Either the team is seriously committed to winning, or the conversation changes. When rumors began to surface that Milwaukee had at least heard proposals or begun preliminary talks with another big-market franchise, the entire league got the message. Maybe the door that had always seemed locked suddenly had a crack. That's where the Warriors come in. If there's one thing this franchise has shown in recent years, it's that it understands title windows better than almost anyone. And when an opportunity of this size appears, it usually doesn't stay open for long. The idea of bringing together a player who dominates all areas of the game, except long-distance shooting at an elite level, with the greatest shooter in history, it's the kind of fit that anyone who follows basketball has ever imagined. The difference is that Golden State was not just in the imagination. From that moment on, conversations between the Warriors and Bucks stopped being mere polls. It was no longer one day, who knows. These were real negotiations, with pieces, salaries, picks, and consequences being put on the table. Two giant franchises discussing in practice how to rewrite their own future in one fell swoop. And then comes the point where everything stops being rumor. The exchange is closed. Golden State Warriors and Milwaukee Bucks reach an agreement that, in itself, makes NBA history. Giannis Antetokounmpo, two-time MVP, league champion, defenseman of the year, one of the most dominant players this game has ever seen, is on his way to the Bay Area to team up with Stephen Curry. Not as a fantasy, not as a montage on a social network, but as a concrete, signed plan, with all the details tied together. Of course, an operation of this size cannot be carried out without gigantic sacrifices. Jimmy Butler is included in the package. In addition to him, Jonathan Kuminga, Quinton Post, and 4 first-round picks go to Milwaukee. In return, in addition to Giannis, the Warriors also receive Cole Anthony, a young point guard with the ability to create plays, ready to take on important minutes off the bench. From a financial point of view, Butler was a must-have. His contract, worth around $54 million per year, is what makes it possible to match Giannis's salary within the strict rules of the salary cap and second salary. But it's not just a matter of payroll. Milwaukee is not simply giving away its star and agreeing to rebuild from scratch. Butler arrives as a player who can immediately assume the role of the main offensive reference, with playoff experience, a history of big decisions, and a competitive mentality that speaks volumes to the city's identity. Kuminga, in turn, represents something that every franchise rethinking the future needs: potential. He's young, athletic, technically growing, and still hasn't reached the ceiling of what he can be. In Golden State, between role adjustments, variable minutes, and the need to fit into a complex system, he never had complete freedom to be his own person. In Milwaukee, the doors open to a bigger role, more minutes, more responsibility. The chance to become the piece that sustains the team for many years is there. The 4 first-round picks complete the package. This is the maximum you can send in a single negotiation. They are, in practice, the currency that gives the Bucks board flexibility. They can become young talents, they can be used in future trades, they can be converted into new stars or squad depth. For Golden State, these picks are the price to be paid for a clear decision: fully prioritize the present. And when we look at Steph Curry's gift, it all makes sense. He still plays at an absurd level. He is still capable of deciding playoff games on his own, but there is no way to ignore the age factor. The window is not infinite. She will not wait for draft picks to mature. She will not slow down so that future projects are ready. The question the board needed to answer was simple and brutal. How many more years are there of Curry at title level? And what are you willing to sacrifice so that these years are played with maximum strength? Now, when we look at what the Warriors have in their hands after this trade, the scenario changes levels. Imagine a starting lineup with Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Draymond Green, and Kevin Looney, with the possibility of alternating Looney and Trace J. Davis according to the opponent. It's a combination that mixes long shots, unstoppable infiltration, tactical intelligence, top-notch defense, and experience in big games. On offense, the simple act of putting Curry and Giannis on the court together forces any defense to make decisions that, for the most part, are all bad. If you prioritize getting the ball out of Curry's hands, you open up space for Giannis to attack the paint with a straight line to the basket. If he congests the bottle to try to stop Giannis's infiltrations, he allows freer shots for the greatest three-point shooter in history. If you fold in one, the other has more freedom. If you try to mark everyone individually, you run the risk of being physically destroyed in the box or continually punished on the perimeter. And that's not to mention the defensive impact. Giannis and Draymond together form a duo that can guard 5 positions, change blocks, protect the rim, and even generate recovered balls in transition. In an ideal scenario, the opponent does not know exactly where the quintet's weakness is, because in practice, it practically does not exist. Add to that players like Wiggins, who also defends well on the perimeter, and you have a team with a real ability to stifle attacks that currently feel comfortable against most defenses in the league. Of course, a movement of this size also affects the fans' emotions. Many people were attached to Kuminga's development, seeing it as a bridge between the Curry era and a post-dynasty future. Others saw Butler as the piece that could complete the squad without demanding such a high price. And there's nothing wrong with feeling a little uncomfortable when you see so many important assets leaving at once. It's part of it. Every big decision involves mourning what could have been. But looking at it from the angle of ambition, it's hard to deny what it represents. For years, there has been debate about whether the Warriors should accept a more low-key role as a competitive but not necessarily favored team as they work through the generational transition. With this exchange, the message is different. As long as Stephen Curry is dressed in blue and gold, the priority is to fight for the top. Not because of a good playoff run, not because of maybe, who knows, and yes, by title. Now, and there is one detail that cannot be ignored: Giannis's contract. He is not arriving as a one-year rental, a desperate bet to try for a title and then see what happens. He comes with a bond that guarantees several years of partnership with Curry. This means that the franchise has time to build, adjust rotations, work on the supporting cast, and see the growth of young players like Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, and others in a highly competitive environment. From a psychological point of view, the impact on the league is immediate. Teams like the Nuggets, Lakers, Suns, Clippers, Celtics, and all the others that saw themselves as part of the main title conversation need to recalculate their route. Because, in a 7-game series, facing a team that has Curry and Giannis together is a challenge that completely changes the way we plan a series. And often, no matter how good the plan is, the reality on the court speaks louder than any clipboard. Now, imagine the scene from the first home game, with Giannis being introduced at Chase Center. The lights dim, the screen shows images of the Warriors' entire history, recent titles, Curry's impossible shots, the iconic moments of the dynasty. Suddenly, the images begin to alternate. Violent dunks by Giannis, wide backs, long steps, absurd blocks, and then the two appear together on the screen, sharing the same shirt, the same shield, the same objective. The crowd's reaction won't just be excitement. It will be the realization that a new chapter is beginning. The bank is also not empty after this exchange. Cole Anthony arrives to bring energy, creation, and aggression, leading the second unit. Moody and Podziemski gain even more relevance in a context in which the gravity of the two superstars opens up opportunities for everyone around them. Gary Payton II continues as a defensive specialist, a player who changes the pace of the game with intensity. Looney and Trace Davis remain silent but fundamental pillars in the big box. In the end, that's what we're talking about, a decision that takes all the risks to try to reap the maximum reward. The Warriors could have chosen the more comfortable path, keeping the squad strong, betting on gradual development, accepting a role as an always competitive team. Instead, they chose to knock on history's door once again. And now I throw this thought at you. How many teams in the league today would have the courage to give up so much of the future for a chance to maximize the present? How many franchises, with such a successful recent history, would accept exposing themselves to the world's judgment once again, risking everything to try a few more years at the top? What can be said, without exaggeration, is that from this moment on, any serious conversation about favoritism for the title needs to go through Golden State. Whether you like the trade or not, whether you agree with the price paid or not, it is impossible to ignore what it means to put Stephen Curry and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the same shirt, under the command of a coach like Steve Kerr, in a system that has always known how to extract the most from special talents. If you've made it this far, it's because this type of decision affects you as much as it affects me. So if it were a video on my channel, this would be the moment I would say, keep following closely, because from now on, each game stops being just one more in the regular season and becomes a preview of what could happen in May and June. The basketball world is about to find out what it really means to see two players of this caliber sharing the same court every night. And we will follow this new phase of the Warriors step by step, with all the consequences, emotions, risks, and possibilities that it brings. And now, after everything you've heard, it's impossible to deny. We are entering a new era. It's not exaggeration. It's not dramatization. It is simply the weight of reality knocking on the door. The Golden State Warriors didn't just take a bold step. They took a leap that will reverberate for years, perhaps decades within the NBA. The union between Stephen Curry and Giannis Antetokounmpo is not just a market movement. It's a manifesto, is the definitive statement that this franchise will not accept the end of the dynasty as long as there is a single thread of possibility of remaining at the top. And you, who have been here following this journey since the beginning, know exactly what that means. Every game from now on becomes a story happening before our eyes. Each night can bring a new record, a new combination impossible to score, a new page written by two of the greatest talents this sport has ever seen sharing the same uniform. So, before I finish, let me tell you something important. You don't miss a moment like this. It is not possible to follow such a monumental transformation from afar. So, as soon as this video ends, it goes straight to the Golden State Warriors News Today playlist, which I left in the pinned comment. There you will find everything you need to understand every detail of this new era, analysis, behind-the-scenes updates, and all the coverage that this historic moment requires. Click there, stay with me, and get ready. What's coming is too big to be seen alone. Let's go together, because the new era of Warriors has begun, and it started with an explosion.